So thank you everybody for coming to the session today. And again, we're doing the fifth session of Write It Right, and it's sponsored by Global English Academy and Winnipeg Language Academy. Last week, we discussed different topics, and we're still looking at writing as a process. We talked about topic selection, understanding the title, and how we can pick a topic that is interesting for us. Also, we talked about brainstorming ideas. We discussed that there are three different types of brainstorming. We also talked about how to create an outline, and we are still working on how to write an essay. So for the outlines, we mentioned that there are two types of outlines, simple outline and detailed outline. And we gave example of a simple outline, which is introduction, body paragraph 1, body paragraph 2, body paragraph 3, and conclusion. And we mentioned in the detailed that we need to write these down. So what's the hook? You write it down. The background information, you write them down. We also, talked about how to create an introduction. And we mentioned that an introduction is made of a hook, and there are different types of hook. And we give an example of creating hooks and types of hooks. Also, we mentioned background information and what is background information. And we were discussing thesis statement. And I think thesis statement is a bit hard. That's why we'll be focusing more on it today, plus some techniques for combining sentences. So types of hook, we mentioned that there is a question hook, interesting observation, unique scenarios, famous quotes, surprising or shocking statistics or definitions. We also mentioned that a background information is a sentence that links the hook and the thesis statement. It can be one or two sentences, and you're advised not to add more details because you will be discussing these details in the body paragraphs. Again, a thesis statement is it usually appears at the end of the first paragraph, and it's one or two sentences, and all the ideas in the essay must be connected to the thesis statement because this creates unity. So if I'm talking about a specific topic in the thesis, let's say traffic, and then I started talking about education in the body paragraph, this defeats the purpose. There is no connection, there is no unity in the essay. Then we mentioned that the essay gives the reader just an insight into the topic. It doesn't tell the reader what is going to happen exactly. It just gives a hint. It just draws the attention of the reader to the topic. All right? What is not a thesis? So these are some examples of what is not a thesis. So a thesis is not an announcement of the topic. Please avoid using these expressions when you write. Okay, so don't write, my subject is the incompetence of Professor X. Okay, just write down what you want to say. So write, Professor X is an incompetent teacher. Okay, I want to share some thoughts with you. Just go ahead and say, our space program is a waste of money. Sometimes people announce it at the end of their sentence, like this example here. The many foreseen problems I encounter when I went to the camping are the topic of this theme or this essay. So this is not also a good one. The paper will attempt to. There is one exemption for the paper will attempt to if you're writing a thesis, if you're writing a thesis for a master's or a PhD, because you will be looking at this sentence to know what's the aim of your dissertation or your thesis. Thesis here is Risala in Arabic, Risalat al-Magister, the final project. So don't use this if you're writing an essay. So don't use the paper will attempt to tell you something about blah, blah, blah. Just go ahead and write. The Grand Canyon was even more magnificent than I had imagined. Or don't write the thesis of this paper is, because this is also another type of announcement. Again, we are still with what is not a thesis. So it is not an absolute fact. A thesis, you can't use an absolute fact as a thesis statement. So you can't say that Jane Austen is the author of Pride and Prejudice, because you won't have enough information to support this. in your body paragraphs. Or the capital of Manitoba is Winnipeg, or the planet closest to the sun is Mercury. Just avoid these. If you have to write about facts, try to use facts in a type of essay where you can give example, which is explanatory essay. So you're explaining things. So maybe you could say, you could use a fact to talk about water cycle. So you could say that water cycle is 3 stages. So this means this is a thesis. This can be a thesis, and in the first body paragraph, you will tell us about the first stage of water cycle, which is heating up the water and evaporation, and so on. So don't use a fact that is a fact. So in your thesis statement, because you will not be able to support it. All right. Also, a title cannot be a thesis statement. So I just want to read here over that the title gives the reader some notion of what the thesis is going to be, but it is not the thesis itself. Also, the thesis itself does not suggest the main idea. It is the main idea. So the main idea of your essay is your thesis statement. Also, remember that a thesis statement will often be a complex sentence. Generally, it will be a complex sentence. Sometimes, if your topic is a large topic, you can make it a compound complex sentence. All right? Here are some examples of titles like home and schools. If you want to write about home and schools, you could write a thesis like parents ought to participate more in education of their children. In this case, you will tell us how parents should be participating more. Another title here is inflation and old age. So you could write something like continuing inflation makes it almost impossible to plan intelligently for one's retirement. And then you would give examples, or you would support this argument with evidence. A shattering experience. This can be a title, but it can't be a thesis. So you would say the first visit to the zoo was a shattering experience, and you would be explaining how this was a shattering experience. Also, the fad of divorce, and fad means trend or increasing number of something. So we could say that too many people get divorced for trivial reasons. And here you would need to explain what are the trivial reasons or give examples of them. Right? So I'll just pause here and get any questions. Guys, if you have any question, please type it here because we will have lots to cover after. Where can you find the previous sessions? The previous sessions, Jihan, would be in the Telegram group, and it would be on Facebook, and it would be, yeah, if you attend the Telegram group, there are links for that. Okay, if you have any question, please go ahead. If not, we will be continuing. All right.
Please, Doctor.
Go ahead.
The third point is not clear for me. The thesis itself doesn't suggest the main idea. It is the main idea itself. What's the difference?
Okay.
Can you?
I'll explain this right away. Now, if you look at this title here, home and schools, okay? And what do you know? Like, what do you get about that? Like, what do you suggest would be the essay about? In titles, the title is just a kind of reference to the topic, to the main topic. So if I read the title home and schools, I would expect that I will read about the relation between home and school, or comparing between the environment of home and the environment of school. Or I'll be writing about where do children enjoy being at more? Do they enjoy to be at home more or to be at school? So this is a suggestion, okay? So a title suggests the topic, but the thesis is the topic that you will be writing about. So when you read parents ought to participate more in the education of their children, this is the topic, this is the thesis. So everything you will read after the thesis, which is the body of the essay, will be related to this sentence, will be related to how parents would be participating with the education of their children. So that's what it means, or that's the difference between when you suggest something and when it is this something itself.
Means that the title is very general, but the thesis statement is particular
Very
for
good.
the yeah.
That's correct, Sumaya. So the thesis statement is specific, and this is one of the characteristics we'll be discussing later. You will have some general and some specific thesis statements, and you would be looking at, yeah, this is very general. It doesn't mean anything for me. I will go for this because this is more specific. That's correct, Sumaya. You guys have any questions? Okay, so what kind of experience we write in the introduction? So in the introduction, it depends on the type of the essay you're writing. So the introduction starts with a hook. A hook is one sentence or one question or a very short story to attract the reader to what you'll be writing about. Then you go to the second stage or the second part of the thesis, of the introduction, and it is connecting ideas. And this is used to set the context for the essay. So you're telling the reader more about the first sentence. I'll give you an example. So one of the students once wrote, "Do you want to die?" Question mark. Then if you don't read what comes before, like after this hook, you wouldn't know the topic. Okay, so some people might write, "Oh, if you eat too much food you will end up dying because of obesity," or another person might write, "Drugs is very dangerous for your life, stop it." So this is the connecting ideas or setting the context tells the reader more about what they will be reading. Then when you go to the last section or the last part of your introduction, this is the topic. Now, you told me, "Do you want to die?" It's a question. You attracted my attention. I want to read. Then you told me that addiction is bad and it's dangerous for your life and for your health. I got that. Now, what will you be discussing after that? So the thesis might be something like, although drugs or drug addiction is uh, very dangerous for us, there are still ways to get rid of it. So this means that when I read the body, I will find out more about the ways of getting rid of drug addiction. So this is exactly what the introduction is. Okay. Next question here. That's right, Huwaida. It's a concise sentence about the topic. Yeah. It's different from the topic sentences, but it's a general sentence that tells the reader what they will be reading about. Is there a difference between a complex sentence and a compound? Yeah, there is. There are differences, and we'll be discussing these right today. Thanks for this question. Now, let's move to another topic here. What is a good thesis now? A good thesis should be specific, as you guys mentioned. So it should cover only what you will discuss in your paper, and it should be supported by specific evidence. Avoid writing about general topics um, like what? Pollution is very dangerous. Just be specific. Find one type. Or you could write about pollution, but if you wanted to discuss different types of pollution. The second point here is a good thesis deals with restricted, bite-sized issues. So it's a very specific, restricted topic. The more restricted the thesis, the better the chances are for you to support in full. But if you have, again, and this is something that they taught us in the masters back in Egypt. So they said, if you wanted to pick a topic for your dissertation, pick a topic that you can cover. You have 200 pages to write. That's fine, but you can't cover maybe the Romantic era, which is a time in the English literature. Excuse me. You can't cover all topics. You can't cover all writers. You can't cover all novels and poetry that was written in this time. Pick one theme, pick one idea, and be specific. That's exactly what we want to do here with the thesis. So make it very, very specific as much as you can. Here we have examples. The word is a terrible mess. This is a very general topic. But if you wanted to make it specific, you would go with trade barriers contribute to international tensions. So as a reader, I would be reading about how trade barriers, which is paying taxes to buy something from another country, maybe, or having to wait outside before you get customs approval, maybe this is another barrier. These are things that make international tension. But when I read the word is a terrible mess, yeah, there are thousands and thousands of problems. I can't do that. I can't cover this in one piece of writing. Also, people are too selfish. This is very general because where are they selfish? When they get selfish? Why they get selfish? You didn't tell me, and you can't cover all of this in one essay. But you could say, for example, human selfishness is seen as its worst during the rush hour. So if you're driving and there is a rush hour, everybody tries to go home early. Everybody doesn't, like, nobody waits for you to go in front of them. So everybody's selfish. Everybody wants to go home early. Then this is a topic that you can discuss. Another topic here, the American steel industry has problems. Yeah, there are many, many problems, and you can't discuss all of these in one essay. But you could say that the worst problem of the American steel industry is lack of funds to renovate outdated plants and equipment. In this case, you would be focusing on funds and how lack of fund is a big problem for the American industry. Also, crime must be stopped. This is very general, okay? But you could say something like, our course should hand out tougher sentences. And Amani, this sentence can be added or can be used in your thesis when you're talking about reckless drivers. So you could say that course should pass on tougher sentences or tougher restrictions, maybe. So this is generally what is a good thesis. Do you guys have any question so far? And I know I shouldn't say, do you have any question, but it's a different scenario. It's a different word. No questions? Okay, so let's move into discussion, or not discussion. It's a quick test. It's a quick activity. Now, write a T. I would like you to type in the text T if the sentence you see is a thesis. If it is not a thesis, write NT. And then we will be discussing how we can improve these to make them theses, or you would say, no, we can't change it. Okay, you ready? That's our first sentence. You tell me if this is a thesis or not, and you tell me why. This is not a thesis. Why? Why, Hannah, this is not a thesis?
Because we shouldn't begin our sentence with I want to tell you.
Yeah, so what do we call that? Do you know what we call that? That's right. We got some answers here. Go ahead.
We call it introductory, but not introduction.
Announcement. Sorry.
Perfect. That's announcement. That's not a problem. Thank you. So it's an announcement. You don't announce your topic. You don't tell people I would like to write it. Right.
Maybe we can call it. It's not. We don't have to be subjective. We have to be objective.
Okay. How can we change this to be an objective sentence?
I want to tell you about many defects. There are many defects in the administration proposal for restructuring the social security program. Maybe
that's perfect. That's perfect. And now, if you say there are many defects, you remove the announcement of, hey, I will tell you. You stop that. You didn't use it. And in this case, you changed it from an announcement into a thesis statement, and that's right. Let me read through some of the answers here. Okay, so we have read this already. Okay, there is a question here about the third one. What is I'm speaking about generally? We will go back. If you could please tell me, third one here, crime must be stopped in this one, right? Yeah, this is general. Why this is general?
No, I'm speaking about number 3. The American steel industry has problems.
Okay.
So maybe
Perfect.
the essay is generally speaking about so many problems. So I'm going to discuss so many problems.
Could you tell me? Could you tell me who I'm talking to, because I still see iPhone.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just changed it, but maybe
No
it
problem.
doesn't change. It's Jihan.
Jihan. Okay, so Jihan, if you would like, could you discuss all the American steel industry problems in one essay?
No, of course not. Not all of them. I know that,
Mhm.
but maybe I'm speaking about some of them. I'm speaking generally about the most important problems there.
Mhm.
So not only one. Yani, the better one here is so specific. So I have to give so many details about just this one problem.
Okay, so again, thank you so much for sharing that. It depends on the scope of your essay. It depends on the scope. So if you wanted to just tell us, okay, as readers, about the types of problems that the American steel industry face, then yeah, you that would be okay. But if you just wanted to discuss all problems, or because here it doesn't even necessarily, it does in this sentence, if you read it, it just says has problems. Okay, problems here is a very general word, and it's a general term. You know, if I tell you that education in Egypt has problems, yeah, it's still general. But if you wanted to say that there are two main problems, or there are some specific problems to education in Egypt, or for education in Egypt, so you try to be specific, because again, it's we speak Arabic, right? And it's the responsibility of the listener to understand what I say. But in English,
Yes.
it's the other way around. It's the responsibility of the speaker or the writer to make it clear.
Yes,
So if I write it this way, yeah, as a reader, as a reader who reads English, I would assume that you're discussing all problems. But if you tell me two problems specific, if you add the word funding problems, then this would be specific, because there might be problems in transportation, problems in in materials, maybe, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. Thank you so much. Got it.
Thank you so much. Okay, it's announcement. Okay, it's poor. Okay, not attractive. So we start with the worst to have the chance to speak about others. Yeah, Hannah, I didn't get the point, but if you wanted to explain more, you can go ahead. Yes.
I want to comment about her questions. Okay, the sentence which we said it's poor, okay, because it's not attractive, and she said that there are many other problems we can speak about. So when we begin the thesis with the worst, we have the chance to speak about other problems, but we will start with the fonts. Okay, if I have more to write, okay, I have the chance. That is my idea.
Okay, let me go back to the same sentence and just focus on it here.
Yes. But here, if I wrote this better thesis, I just write a specific one. Most of my essay should be about just this one, right?
Perfect. And here in this essay, I would be discussing why it is the worst problem. Okay? Because there are problems, there are other problems. If I read it as a reader, I'll understand that there are other problems. Yeah, I admit that. But the worst problem that we will be discussing here in this essay, and I expect to read why you think as a writer this is the worst problem, this will be in the body paragraphs. And that's correct. Again, it depends on the scope of your essay. If the type of the essay here, I would assume that this person who chose the thesis statement would be writing an argumentative essay, and he or she would be trying to prove that funding is the worst problem. They would give reasons why funding is the first problem. You might say, for example, that because of funding, we don't have enough people to work in factories, so we had to cut down in like the numbers of employees, or lay some off. So, or lay some out. So it depends on the scope, it depends on the aim, it depends on the type of the essay. Again, this can be, the American steel industry has problems, can be a thesis, but if I'm just mentioning the types of problems, like employment, funding, transportation, material, or raw material. So it depends on the scope. Again, we're just discussing these to see how much specific is this thesis statement, and how much general this is how much this is a general thesis statement. Okay, so let's move to number 2 now. Just delayed is a just denied. Is this a thesis statement or not a thesis statement, and why? That's a good hook, Tagreed. That's right. So do you think it's still, can it still act as a thesis? It's a title. It can be a title. It can be a hook. Both of them. Perfect. No, it's general. Right? Okay, so you said this is general, so it can't be a thesis, right? Now it's a hook. Yasmin said. Okay, could you guys think of how can we change this? Or you could you please type a thesis statement for this topic? You could think of something and just type it in the chat box. What is a thesis? How can we change this justice delayed is a justice denied into a thesis statement? A hook means it's a statement that is written to attract the reader to the topic. It can be a question, it can be a quote, it can be a statistic, it can be surprising fact or surprising statement. So this is a hook. So if you read justice delayed is justice denied, yeah, this hooks me. Yeah, I want to read more about that, because this is, it looks like a statement, or it looks like wise saying or a quote from somewhere, from a book or something, right? The hook is the first sentence of your essay. It's the first sentence of the introduction, and it's the first sentence of the essay. Okay, so we have here, the judicial system needs to be fair at all times. It just at all times, to ensure that there aren't any exceptions. That's right, Tagreed. That's correct. And could you change it or add a little bit about being delayed? Because this topic is, I can guess that this topic is about taking longer time in courts to get or to reach a decision, a final decision. But yours is a very good. I like it. Thanks for sharing. Thanks a million, Manny. I'm sorry, guys. I could, pause in reading your names because it's small for me. Courts in our country need more strictness in dealing with crime. That's a good one, Huwaida. Could you add the word of delay, like the idea of being delayed, to that? According to the main cases in court, it's become hard to take an immediate stance or sentence. That's right. That's a good one. Thanks. And then you will be giving examples of that. You'll be supporting why this is happening, maybe, right? Okay. Now let's move to number 3. Al Capone, the Chicago gang leader, was nicknamed Scarface. Is this a thesis or not a thesis, and why? Not a thesis. Why? Why this is not a thesis, Tanvi?
Because it is a fact.
It is a fact, right? Everybody knows that this person is known as Scarface. That's right. Is there a way to change this to a thesis statement or not? Because sometimes there is no way to change it. Just let me know if there is a way, and if you can type it please in the chat box. Delaying punishment for the guilt is unfair. Asma, that exactly means justice delayed is justice denied, right? We need to add more specific points to that. So we could say that people who wait longer for a decision in course might themselves lose hope in getting justice. So in this case, you would be explaining why they would lose hope. You could give examples. You could mention stories of people who lost hope. That's why they didn't even follow with courts, right? Okay, so looking at sentence 3, is there a way to change it or not? If there is a way, please type it. If you can, if you want it to unmute yourself and talk, go ahead. I don't think there is a way to change that into a sentence, into a thesis statement. I'm sorry.
We can add the reason behind this nickname, I think.
Okay, can you tell me what do you think? Like, can you tell me a sentence exactly of what you mean?
For example, we can say, let us know the story behind giving, what's his name? Al Capone?
Al Capone, yeah.
Al Capone, his nickname as the Scareface.
That's a good one, but could you remove the first part of let us see? Because let us see is a kind of announcement. Come and read this. Like, I will tell you about.
I'll tell you about? We can add, I'll tell you about?
No, we shouldn't say that. We shouldn't let's do. We shouldn't say let's talk about, or we shouldn't say I will tell you about, because this is an announcement. And a thesis statement is not announced.
Okay, can we say, do you know the reason behind giving Al Capone his nickname as Scareface? Could it be a question?
If you make it a question, it will be a hook. No, a thesis statement is not a question. It should be a statement. So you're just mentioning facts. You're putting the brakes. Yeah, go ahead.
You can say there is an strange reason, interesting reason behind giving Al Capone his nickname as the Scareface.
Yeah, in this case, yeah, that's perfect. You could use the body paragraph to explain the reasons, right? And that's perfectly correct. In this case, that's perfectly right. Now let's get some of the answers here. No, it's a fact. No, it's a fact. Historic information. Yeah, it's a historic information. Agreed. Delaying punishment for we mentioned this already. There are a lot of mafia leaders who influence the history, like Al Capone. In this case, the topic will be talking about mafia leaders, right? That's correct. Agreed. If you want, the worst problem with justice is that it's always delayed. Yeah, Sumaya, that exactly means justice delayed is just denied. Okay, but if you wanted to talk about why it is the worst problem, then this would be okay. Not a single day passes without our hearing about some delayed justice due to the fragile law regulations in our country. That's perfect, Huwaida. I just want you to remove the cliche in the beginning. Not a single day passes without us hearing about some delayed. You could just go ahead and mention it, okay? You could mention that there is delayed justice happened due to the fragile law regulations in our courts, and then you would mention why it is fragile from your perspective, or you could mention some of these examples. In order to understand the history of crime in Chicago, we need to learn more about the story of Al Capone, also known as Scarface. Okay, this can be a thesis statement for a story, تغريد, okay, but not an essay, like what do you call it? An argumentative essay, maybe, or an explanatory essay, expository essay. But this can be for a narrative if you wanted to tell a story. All right, let's move to number 3 now. Sorry, number 4. My thesis, okay, these 4 and 5. My thesis asks whether affirmative action programs are just a new form of racism. Is this correct or not? Number 4, delaying justice causes people to be frustrated and sad, which make them take revenge, their way to take their rights. That's a good one, Amani. This is perfect. And Hana, number 4 is an announcement, yeah, because it is not a thesis, it's an announcement. That's right. For social studies research, yeah, Tagreed. Let me go back to it. Yeah, again, Tagreed, in order to be more specific, we try to avoid we need to learn. Yeah, you got my point. You need to learn. Let's read about, let's know about, this paper will be about. Just make it like to understand the history of crime in Chicago, okay? A story about Al Capone would be discussed maybe, but this is still an announcement. You know, you could work around it. Okay, and we have here announcements, no, announcement, no, it's not. It can be a thesis, but it's a short and needs completion. So if you're talking about number 4, Amani, it is an announcement because it says my thesis asks about. Okay, for number 4, it's not only poor people who get the government handouts. That's good. Yeah, number 5 here can be a thesis statement. It is not only only poor people who get the government handouts, because you would be giving examples of other people who get support from the government, right? So in this case, that's fine. That's right. You can add, you can use it as a thesis statement. For number 5, does anyone here disagree that this could be a thesis statement?
Me.
Go ahead. Who is talking here? Let me just grab this.
Sahar?
Yeah, Sahar, go ahead. Why do you disagree that this could be a thesis statement?
I think it's not clear. It's more general. I need to be more specific.
Right.
I need to mention who's gonna get the government handouts. You can mention poor people and you can mention all people. You have to be more specific.
Perfect.
Know?
Could you create or could you craft this sentence for us?
For example, all classes or all people in society get government handouts. You have to mention what kind of people who get the government handouts.
So you could talk about the all different society classes get handouts from the government, maybe? That's perfect. Okay. So why this is different from it is not only poor people who get the government handouts? Because as a reader, I believe that they are equal. As a reader, I would say that, yeah, everybody gets it means that not only those people get it. So why this is a general sentence, but this not a general sentence?
But you told me it's not only poor people. Maybe poor people and some of the other society classes.
Okay. In your sentence, you said that everybody, right?
Yeah. So I'm gonna. It according to the scope of my essay, by the way.
Can you explain this more? Go ahead.
For example, if I'm gonna write which class is gonna take the government handouts, I have to mention all these classes.
Okay.
In my thesis. That's it.
Okay. So in your essay, you would say, you're saying now, what I hear you saying that is, it's that I would be talking about all different groups that receive the government support. Is this correct?
Yes, that's my opinion.
Perfect. Now, in my essay, okay, which has this statement, it's not only poor people who get the government handouts. I would be talking about the middle class and the poor people or the lower class only. Wouldn't this be okay? Wouldn't this be specific enough?
If you mean this, for me, no.
So this enough or not?
I think the same idea. I think the same idea. You're not specific.
So it's the same idea, because now It depends again on what you want to discuss. If you wanted to discuss
the scope of the essay, yeah, you can mention poor people get the government handouts. So you're talking about the poor people. If you're talking about the middle class, you're gonna mention the middle class are gonna get the government handouts.
Absolutely.
That's my opinion.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sahan. That's correct. So if you wanted to talk about all of them, that's fine. If you wanted to talk about two of them, that's fine too. And it depends again on the scope and the type of the essay. If you're just explaining or talking about different types, that's fine. This will be a good hook. Thesis statement. Now let's go quickly back to the answers here. All right. I guess there is no difference. There is no difference, right? I agree with Summer, right? Yes, I need more details. We have to clarify the reason only it's too short. Yeah, it's short, but the ideas is complex. So you can write a shorter sentence with complex ideas. That's fine. It's hard to provide all people with handouts as it is inaccessible. Yeah, in some countries only, but some countries they give handouts to everybody. Can you, and handouts here means support, like financial support maybe. Can we ask a question? Yeah, you can ask a question. Go ahead, type your question, or if you wanted to talk, go ahead and talk. This is Ahmed. This is Atif, sorry. Atif, are you here?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Good morning, good evening, I'm sorry.
It's good morning
I want
here,
to say,
good morning there. I'm just saying good evening,
sorry, okay.
Good evening there. Go ahead.
Yeah. If we change this number 5 to ask a question using do poor people only get the governmental handouts? Is it a thesis or not?
If you make it a question, it would be better as a hook. We try to avoid questions in the thesis because now I asked the question already in the beginning. I give background information and I set the context for you as a reader. You know now what I'm talking about. Now I would put down the basis. I would put down the main idea, the core of the essay. I would tell you this is what I'm talking about. So you will take this and then follow it. Go ahead.
Sorry, Doctor. At the beginning of the session, I thought that you mentioned 3 types of the thesis. Okay, I thought the number 1 is a hook. So to put a question in the type of the thesis, or this did I misunderstood what you say?
Yeah, the first type. I'll go back quickly to that, Atif. Quickly, we were talking about hooks here.
Yeah.
So a hook can be a question, like how many people began their mornings with this, with checking their phones. Interesting observation.
It's a type of question.
Yeah.
So it's a type of question.
Yeah, we're talking about the hook here. So the hook is, if you look at the introduction, the hook comes in the very, very beginning. Then you go to connecting information, but now we're talking about a thesis statement. So these are the 3 main parts of the introduction. A hook can be a question, that's fine.
Yeah.
Background information is 1 or 2 sentences just to link the hook to the thesis. The thesis is the main idea. Your entire essay here revolves around it. So it's the main idea, it's the core that the reader will be reading about later on in the body paragraphs. Okay?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Ahmed. Now we have another sentence here. It's the rule that the government, just go back to this one. Okay, I'll give number 6 for you guys just to take a quick look and tell me if it is a thesis or not. It's the rule.
Doctor.
Yes, go ahead, Sumay.
Is that correct that the thesis statement is the concluding sentences for the introduction?
Yeah, you could say that. But it's not a conclusion. Okay, it's the roadmap to the essay. The roadmap.
Maybe it's the last sentences of the introduction that will transfer us to the first paragraph.
That's perfect. That's a good explanation for it. So because when you say concluding, it means that it just summarizes something. Because it's when you say conclude, I will conclude my speech now means I will summarize what I said and I'll give you the final ideas. So usually in the introduction we just started. We don't we don't conclude when because we still be looking at different aspects of the essay. We'll be speaking or writing more about the essay. Thanks, though. Now it's the role of the government to provide help for the poor and less fortunate classes of the society to help them enhance their circumstances. Okay, Tagreed. Now, what will you be writing about? Will you be proving that it's the role? It should be the role here. Is it the role of the government, or you will be talking about the types of support that the government give people? Just let me know. Now, does any poor people get the government handouts? This is we mentioned that this is a hook here. Now, the government should put an eye on all cases of the community, not only the poor. All right, so we can change the word into the word cases into classes, maybe classes of the community, not only on. And it's, for me, this is still, if you say keep an eye on, it doesn't mean necessarily give money, right? So keep an eye on means observe them, follow them, know what's happening to them. Okay, it could be a thesis. It's a poor, but it could be Jihan. Yeah, I agree with you about that. What time is it's in Canada? It's I don't know. It's 2:05 now, 2 p.m. Now, next question. No, the introduction. The introduction, yes, has a hook. Thank you for explaining that. All classes get government handouts as a kind of social security. That's right, but it's a bit general here. No question. Also, hook. What does number 6 mean? How to grow prize-winning roses. So, if you want to learn how to grow roses that can compete and get a prize, this is what I'm telling you about. So can this be a thesis or not? The solution and how to enhance the circumstances of the poor. Yeah, Tagreed. The solution and how to. Okay. Yeah. We just need to make sure that this is really connected to what you've mentioned earlier. Okay. Thanks, though. I think it's a title for a prize. Yeah, it's a title. It's a hook. It can be a hook, right? It's a hook. All of you agreed on that. That's perfect. Now, let's move to number 6 because we don't want to spend all our time here. So this paper will examine recent proposals to reinstate the death penalty. What do you think of number 7? Is it a thesis or not a thesis?
I think not a thesis.
Not a thesis. Why? That's right. This is not a thesis, but why it is not a thesis?
I think because it is an announcement.
Perfect. Because it's an announcement. They are announcing here what we'll be discussing. Thanks.
We can, yeah. We can say that this topic will speak about. I want to say. I think it is the same as number 1. I wanted to tell you it is a matter of announcement.
Perfect. That's great. I agree with you, and we have Amani who agrees here with you. Most people here agree with you. Perfect. Thank you so much, Hatif. Now, my husband is a terrible cook. This sentence will be okay for ladies here with us. So what do you think, guys? Is it a thesis or it is not a thesis? Just type in I agree with him. Okay. So my husband is a terrible cook. Is it a thesis statement?
I think it can be, but it's poor. It can be more specific, and it can it needs to be more details. Add more details.
Oh, some people say it's a fact. This hurts. Okay. So yeah, it's a general sentence. It's a very general sentence because as a reader, I wouldn't know what you will be talking about. Is he like he doesn't know how to cook, or he cooks but he adds too much salt to food, or like he burns food, or what? So this can be very general one. That's right. Thank you. Now, I change it. Yeah.
I think it can be used as a hook, and if we add few details or one detail, it can be a thesis sentence, right?
Yeah, it can be a thesis statement. Now, I'd like you to look at number 9. What do you think? Is it a thesis statement? Did we manage to make it a thesis statement or not?
I think it's so restricted. There aren't more details to talk about this point.
Okay, so this is what you think, Amani, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. So we can talk about my husband cooks all meals for our family, and yeah, I know I don't have much details to talk about that, right? But maybe someone else would be looking at, yeah, I will be discussing the breakfast and how he cooks breakfast for us, and how he gets the lunchbox of our child ready, and how he can, maybe if you have a pet, gets food ready for the cat. So in this case, there are some details. Second paragraph would be maybe about getting lunch or dinner ready, or so on. Again, I agree with Amani. This can be a very poor one because it's very restricted. But generally speaking, you can play with it. You can add some words to that in order to improve it and make sure it has an adequate scope. Because again, at the end of the day, you don't want to be very, very narrow, very, very specific, because you won't have enough evidence or enough information to write about, and you don't want to be very, very broad, right? Okay, so it's poor, it's general, it's poor, it's I think it can be more of a background information. Yeah, it can be. And it can be, yeah, it's a general information. That's absolutely right. Now let's move a little bit to write G for a good thesis statement, and NG, which is not good, for next each one which is not a good thesis statement. And I'd like you to justify your answers. So all of these are thesis statements. Okay, it can be thesis statements, but some of them are good, some of them are bad. So we will go through them, and you just type, yes, this is good, no, it's bad. And you tell me why. The history of the United States is dominated by lust for money. Is this a good one, or it is bad one? Just write N or NG. Sorry, G or NG. NG means not good, and G means good. So if you write NG, write why you think this is not a good thesis statement. It lacks details, right? I'm talking about lust for money. Yeah, not G, not NG. Some people say it's good. Some people say it's not good. So I would appreciate if you tell me, why it's a good one. Why do you think it's a good one? Why do you think it's a bad one? Not complete. You just write one sentence. Tell me why you think it is not a good one.
Can I answer this question and why?
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, the history of the United States is dominated by lust for money. I think it's an argumentative point to talk about, and to want to approve it through the details which we provide in the essay. Perfect. So I think it's a very good statement to be a thesis.
Perfect. So this can be, I agree with you, this can be a very argumentative essay, a very argumentative point, and it can be a very good one for the essay. Thank you so much, Amani, for sharing. Now I'd like to get some of the perspectives. Thank you. So some of the perspectives of people who say, no, it's not a good one, and why. Just let me why. Like lust for money is what area in the profession? No, I don't get that. Good, because
sorry, can we write a sentence, if the United States is dominated by lust of money, and stop? I think it's not completed at all, but I don't have there is no idea to complete it. I think it would well كذا complete it. Can a sentence stand by its own Starting with if, that is the idea.
Starting by it, you said?
No, by if the United States is dominated by lust for money and stop it.
No, this will
I
be
think
a dependent clause. A dependent clause means
it need a complete it needs to be completed.
Yeah,
That's the idea.
right. Yeah, that's correct. Thank you for sharing. Now,
Hi, Dr. Ham.
hello, Taghreed, go ahead.
Hi. I want to say it's not a good statement because the history of the United States, like more than 600 years, it's so general, the word is a history. There is no specific dates, maybe. And also in what areas there is over 50 states. So in which state are you talking about? And also who owns the money, like the Europeans when they got there, or as Mexican. There are a lot of races, so it's so general.
I agree with you again, because it depends on what you want to write in the essay. If you wanted to write yes or no, our history is not dominated by loss of money. Others might say, no, it is dominated. Look at what happened in this time, and what happened in the Depression, and what happened in blah, blah, blah. Then, yeah, this can be an argumentative essay.
I think we just, for me, I think we just should justify the reasons behind this. Why does the history of the United States is dominated by the loss for money?
That's perfect.
I think that's the point.
Yeah,
we shouldn't. Yeah.
Go
ahead.
You go ahead. Sorry.
There is no need for overthinking and severe and brainstorming for many and so ideas. We have just to specify what we want to talk about in the essay. That's my point of view.
Perfect. So let me explain the difference in opinion here. Amani thinks that this can be an argumentative statement. So people would say, no, this is not right. But now you, as a writer, you would be giving evidence, some examples of what happened in the history of the United States to prove that it was dominated by money, right? In the same time, Taghreed's statement or opinion is correct, because she was looking at a descriptive of what happened in the history of the United States. So if you're looking at the history and description of what happened and description of who had the money or who controlled the money, this would be a very broad statement. So we wouldn't be able to describe the history in detail, since the Europeans arrived in the United States and the Jews moved there, and the money there, and the factories there, and what happened during the World War I and II. In this case, this would be a very, very broad. But generally speaking, I could say that the history of the United States is dominated by loss for money, or for money here. Then I would tell you why I think that. And if it is an argument, that's perfect. If you're looking at it as a description, then this would be a different story. All right. Now let's look at. Yeah. Go ahead.
Can I say something?
Sure.
I think if we consider it a description or a descriptive essay, I think by this we assure that it's a fact. So it's a fact, and we describe how did it happen.
Yeah, and that's why we disagree with that, because it's not an expository essay. We can't talk about examples in the history of the United States in all of these years and what happened. If you wanted to use it in the other type of essay, then this wouldn't be a good one. But you still could use it as a type of as a thesis statement for the argumentative essay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
So, Huwaida, do you want to say something?
Yes, I was wondering. I guess it's an argumentative essay. Yeah, the thesis is super perfect. I like it because it gives me space to mention more details, as if I have a graph or even a diagram, and then I you know, I go from step to step, and I mention how the United States history is dominated by people who have lust for money. I may mention the Jew, maybe some people on the parliament, etc. I can go like it's like steps. I go step for step, and I have a graph. Maybe I have a diagram, and I can relate to it. I like it, and it's super wonderful. It's a sentence.
Right. So thank you so much for sharing, Hawaida. That's right. Again, it depends on what you aim. You know, we mentioned before that there is a purpose of writing. When I write, I would be maybe I want only to prove a point. So proving a point that the history of the United States is dominated by loss for money, I can write an essay and I can tell you that yeah, they are dominated by that, and this happened in this time, this happened in this time, this happened in this time. And then you would say, no, this is not right. Let me write another essay and respond to it. And there are, you know, some exams here. They give you an essay, an argumentative essay, and they tell you respond to this. Take the other stand and respond to it. So you need to look at their arguments, and then you need to refute these arguments. So you need to write your own evidence. You got it? So again, it depends on what you want to write. Again, we had, if I saw someone raising his hand here.
It was me.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I think before we judge an essay, we need to read the whole essay, because before we judge a thesis, because we need to tell if it has a unity or not. So at the end of the day, it's the direction of your essay.
Perfect.
Did the thesis provide this direction? Did it lead you right or not?
Perfect.
For me, this thesis, this statement doesn't provide direction. Like, I think, I don't know, it doesn't provide any direction for me. Like, I'm a reader, I don't know where you will go. I feel like you're being just, I don't know, saying
Stating
things. I don't know.
Yeah.
It doesn't give me any clue where will you go with your essay.
Yeah, I just want you to remember that a thesis statement is only one part of your introduction, and it is one part of your essay as a whole, right?
But it should direct me. It should lead me to somewhere.
Absolutely.
From here, I feel it's so general.
And I agreed with you that this is general, because if you're talking about just describing or explaining how this history was dominated by money, then yeah, it's very general. It's really hard for me to talk about all of these. But if it can improve. You know, it's still, at the end of the day, it's a poor thesis statement. So my final decision, my opinion, this is a poor thesis statement. If you wanted, you could say that after mentioning your hook, your thesis, your background information, you could say that generally speaking, or some kind of setting the context that the history of the United States, okay, in fact, the history of the United States is dominated. If you say in fact here, this means that I'm assuring you, and then I will be mentioning the reasons why it's my opinion. Okay. Thanks again, Tahrid, for sharing. Muhammad Salah, go ahead.
Evening, Dr. How are you doing?
I'm sorry. Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Indeed, the first one to attend, I'd like to appreciate yourself tremendously for presenting this wonderful topic.
Thank you.
How to write well and organize. Okay. So in short, I'd like to tell you that topic sentence, our thesis in the essay, is like the topic sentence in the program. And the topic sentence has many or some characteristics of one essay. So the thesis and the essay should have the same characteristics. For example, brevity, clarity, precision are one of the characteristics of the topic sentence. So the thesis and the essay should have the same characteristics. Okay. So brevity means to try not to fill the topic sense with details. So the rule of the rest of the paragraph. So you must be brief, specific, and clarity. You say precisely what you want to say in clear words and avoid speaking in ambiguous terms. And don't present the point that you will illustrate in expressive ways. It's not only boring method, but so unhelpful to readers. So the topic sentence is like, or the thesis and the essay is like the topic sentence in a paragraph. As you know, a paragraph is a unit of an essay. So what we apply in the topic sentence should be applied in the thesis writing. And also, if you like to organize your paragraph, you should use organizational patterns or organizational skills. Descriptive organizational pattern, cause effect organizational pattern, complete contrast, and so on. And there are 8 types of organizational pattern if you understand. But the most common ones are 5. So according to the topic itself, you can organize your essay or your paragraph. And thank you so much for your sharing.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Muhammad, for sharing. Thank you. So again, it's as we mentioned, it can be a good one for some topics, for some essays, and it could be, no, it's not a good one. I disagree with that in some others, right? Now, moving to number 2 here, and common sense is something that is sometimes the enemy of genius. Could you please tell me if this is a good one or not, and why?
Can I ask you a question before moving on to the next one?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. If we have, okay, we all agree that and learned from you that this thesis sentence should be argumentative, and there is something to we should to
just let me stop you here again. A thesis statement should not be argumentative. A thesis statement is the main statement of your essay. So if I'm writing an argumentative essay, then my thesis should be argumentative. If I'm writing a problem-solving essay, my thesis will be something else. If I'm writing compare and contrast essay, it will be a different time. Why do we focus on argumentative essay? Because it's the very common topic that students might be exposed to. Tell me what you think of. If you're doing IELTS exam, they would tell you that some people think this and some people think this. What do you think? That's why we focus on argumentative thesis statement. And inshallah, in the coming weeks, when we look at types of essays, we will be looking at why this thesis statement is good and why this is not good if we switch them. Because this is a good argumentative thesis statement because the topic is argumentative essay, but this is a compare and contrast, so it shouldn't be there. For example, if you remember, we're talking about Egypt and the United States. One of us might say Egypt is better than in the United States in different aspects. This is an argumentative essay, and then I'll tell you the different aspects, and I'll tell you why Egypt is better than the United States, right? Another one might say that Egypt and the United States, although Egypt and the United States are different, are in different continents, they have similar characteristics. In this case, it's a compare and contrast, and I'll be explaining why or how they are similar. You got it? So it depends on the type of the essay. Here, this is still the background. We just want to make sure that our thesis statement is specific to cover a specific scope. This is number 1, because I don't want to write very, very general thesis statement, and then when I'm trying to convince the reader about it, it will be really hard. It will be super hard for me to tell the reader my point, to get my point across to the reader.
And if I'm writing an essay to explain something or to talk about a fact, the thesis sentence here won't be, it will also be a fact. It will be.
If you're looking at number 1 and you wanted to talk about the history of the United States, this will be a very general thesis statement. And in this case, you would say maybe between 1995 and 2015, it's the time when the United States was dominated by lust for money. And now you're talking about a specific period of time, and it's manageable to cover it. But if you look at the history, this is very, very broad. Generally, the history from the time when the Europeans arrived in the United States coast, it's hard. It's even hard to cover this in 200-page thesis, like for a master's or PhD. So again, it depends on what you want to do, and the scope of your essay, and the type of your essay, right?
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, Amani.
I got it.
Thank you. So common sense is something that sometimes the enemy of the genius. Let me take a quick look at you guys. I read the wrong one. Okay, they will destroy the whole world for the greed. I go along with her. Okay, so we got some opinions here. Okay, cause in general sentences, which it leads to more specific ideas. Can anyone please tell me what's the topic? Okay, Ziad, we are talking about a thesis statement, how to create a precise, specific thesis statement in general, not related to specific topics or types of essays. Hook, no, it's not a good one. It's general. Okay, number 2 is good. Story for biography. I disagree with you, Tagreed, because it could be a fact. If you wanted to use it in a story, maybe you could use that as a hook in the beginning of the sentence, in the beginning of your story. Now, because we still have another big part of the class today, we will stop here at number 3. This will be the last one. I'd like you to tell me if you think it's a good one or not, and then we'll move quickly to the other part, which is writing different types of sentences. Could you please tell me, British and American poets through the centuries have vastly overrated the glories of romantic love? Mm-hmm. Okay. Before you decide, I'd like you to focus on through the centuries and tell me if you think this is a general or a specific one. Yeah, some people say it's good. Still looking at good general. Yeah, Manal says it's a general one. It's a super general one. Sumaya, go ahead.
Yes, I think it is not good because through the centuries, this phrase is very general.
Mm-hmm.
We need to determine which centuries we will talk about.
Perfect.
For example, the 17th century, the 18th century.
Perfect. That's right. I agree with you because we're looking at the script. It's an expository essay here, and this period through centuries is very, very general for us to cover. Now, I stop here, and the rest of these sentences will be posted in the Telegram group, and we'll be answering them there. Huwaida, do you want to say something before we move?
Well, I have a different opinion about the sentence number 3 because we can focus on the romantic love.
Mm-hmm.
The glories of romantic love. I can discuss this point.
Yeah, but I would like you to, I just would like to draw your attention to British and American poets. Do you know how many people, how many are those?
Mm-hmm. Yes, maybe. Yes, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't know.
It's a big number. It's a big number of people, right?
Uh-huh.
So if you want to discuss their poetry, like one of them might be, one of the poets have written 500 poems, okay? And you want to analyze these and you want to say, look, in the 500 poems he wrote about the glory of romantic love in 350, and this is only one. So you have covered like 2-3 sentences, and then you need to move to another one, and it's really, really big. Okay, so in this case, it's a general, very general topic. I'll be posting the rest of these in our Telegram group. Okay, And I'd like to move quickly. We have something else to talk about today. We also mentioned that last time. This is a kind of review because some of the statements can be very direct. For example, we would say, for example, here, the life of the typical college student is characterized by time spent in studying, attending classes, and socializing with peers. Sometimes we could say that the life of typical college student is characterized by different things or three aspects. Then we would know that you'll be talking about three aspects. If you want to go or review these, you can go to the previous session recording and you will find it. And also we mentioned here how to create a thesis statement. It's better to start by I believe that. So I believe that maybe American culture identity can be defined by art, literature, and film. And throughout the writing, you might get some new ideas, or you might need to change some of these items. So you still have the time, or you can add, I believe that American culture identity could be defined by art, literature, music, and film. So this is called a working thesis, and a working thesis is the thesis that works out or evolves throughout the essay. Again, I just want to mention something very quick here. Although we mentioned that a thesis statement is the last part of the introduction, sometimes writers prefer to write it at the end. Why? Why do they prefer that? Because when they write their essay, they know that, yeah, in the first body paragraph, I'll be talking about this point, second body paragraph, this point, third body paragraph, this point. But when they're writing, they find out, oh my God, I moved from speaking about arts to speaking about literature. Then, I'm going to change it. So it's literature, not arts, okay? Then when they go back to write their thesis statement, they already know what they have written about. And this makes it very precise and united. It builds the cohesion and the coherence of the thesis statement, of the essay itself, okay? Compound, complex, and compound, simple, compound, and complex sentences. I know this is a topic that most of us have gone through. I just want to go quickly through it and point out some things that we might not be aware of. Again, a simple sentence is a sentence that is made of three main components: a subject, a verb, and a complete thought. So it must have a subject and a verb and a complete thought. It can't, if it is subject and verb only, it is not a complete sentence and it is not a simple sentence. Okay. Here we have, for example, Joe waited for the train. So Joe is the subject and waited is the verb, and it has a complete meaning. The train was late. The train is the subject and was is the verb. Okay. If you look at simple sentences, could also include a compound subject. And a compound subject is made of two words or three words or more. Okay. And it also could include a compound verb, and it's two verbs or more. So we could say, for example, a compound subject is Mary and Sam, and the compound verb is cooked and ate. So we could say Mary and Sam cooked and ate dinner together at home. Although this is a long sentence, and although if you read, yeah, this is a subject, this is another subject, this is a verb, this is another verb, it still is a simple sentence. A simple sentence which made of subject, verb, and complete thought. All right. If you guys have any question about simple sentence, please write it in the chat box here. If not, we'll be moving to the next point. Okay, no question. Now, I will stop sharing this one because I will need to play a video. I know people like to watch videos, and it's a nice one. So I'd like you guys to watch this short video together with me, and then we will get back to questions. Sorry, could you ask, what's the benefit when knowing the kinds of statements? When I write an essay, I focus only how we can write well. That's a very good question. Okay, have you ever read something and you found that, oh my God, I don't understand what this person is writing about? Although all sentences are correct, they are not related. He or she wrote a sentence about pollution types, and then he moved to talk about the problem of transportation in Cairo, and then he talked about being late because of the transportation and because of the pollution. That's why we study that. That's why we focus on explaining it's a subject. We teach writing course in the university, so it's a subject. So it takes time to improve it. It takes time to understand the techniques. There are conventions for writing, so it's a very broad field. That's why we need to understand it. So although you might be writing correct sentences, someone's essay or paragraph might be very scattered. So that's why we study writing. Okay, so Mr. Rida, could you hold on? I just need to read the questions, and we can post the link at the end. Yeah, the link of the end will be posted at the link would be posted at the end of the session, inshallah. Okay. Okay, Zizi, could you hear me now? Maybe I talk a little bit lower. It's necessary to know about sentence. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Zizi.
Thank you.
Now let's take a look at the video we have. And okay, let me share this here with the sound. Okay, basic, and this is it. Okay, please mute yourself, all of you, and we'll be listening to this video or watching this video together, okay?
Good writing needs to be more than just grammatically correct. A successful essay needs range and style and variety. So a good way and a simple way to achieve that is just by varying the length and style of the sentences you use in your essays and paragraphs. Now, although students sometimes think that there are way too many different kinds of sentences in the English language, every sentence you write actually falls into one of 4 categories. And I would like to talk about the first 2 types of sentences right now. Now, the first kind is what we call the simple sentence. A simple sentence has a subject, a verb, and is one complete idea. For example, Tony flew to Toronto. Now, it's important to know that a simple sentence can also have a compound subject. For example, Tony and Janet flew to Toronto. Now, although there are 2 subjects there, you've still maintained one complete idea, and therefore it's still a simple sentence. Similarly, a simple sentence can also have a compound verb, or 2 verbs. In this case, Tony flew to Toronto and visited some friends. And again, although there are 2 verbs in this sentence, there is one subject, and it is really one complete thought, and is therefore a simple sentence. Now, the second kind of sentence in the English language is called the compound sentence. And it's called a compound sentence because it is when you take 2 simple sentences or 2 independent clauses and connect them to make one smooth sentence. Now, there are 3 different ways to do that. Option 1, to make a compound sentence, is by using a coordinating conjunction with a comma. So when I say coordinating conjunction, I mean and, but, or, so, for, yet, or nor. If you use a comma plus one of these 7 words to connect 2 simple sentences, you've got a compound sentence. For example, I had a very long day, so I'm going to bed. Or, a promotion at work can come with stress of added responsibilities, but it can also be very rewarding. So that's option 1. Option 2 is simply using a semicolon to connect your 2 ideas. Rather than using a conjunction, you can use the semicolon to show the relationship between 2 independent clauses. For example, I've washed the dishes every day this week, semicolon, today it is your turn. Or, the storm was very destructive, semicolon, many people lost their homes. Now, it's clear when you're looking at these 2 sentences that the semicolon represents a cause and effect relationship between the 2 sentences. Be careful not to use the semicolon to show contrast, because it could confuse the reader. If you look at this sentence, the team has very devoted fans, semicolon, they never win. Now, in this case, the meaning is unclear, and the connection between the two is unclear and could confuse the reader. So I would avoid that. Now, the third option for making a compound sentence is using a semicolon with a word that we call a conjunctive adverb. Now, by conjunctive adverb, I mean a word like therefore, however, as a result, consequently, and so on. Now, if you use a semicolon with that, one of these words, you make a compound sentence. For example, Jason passed the exam, however, he is not completely satisfied with his test results. Or, many people lost their homes in the storm, therefore, they were forced to rebuild. Now, just to sum up, there are 3 different ways to make a compound sentence. Now, look at these 3 examples that all have the same meaning. Tim missed the beginning of the movie, so I had to explain the story to him. Tim missed the beginning of the movie, semicolon, I had to explain the story to him. And Tim missed the beginning of the movie, therefore, I had to explain the story to him. So those are the first 2 of the 4 kinds of sentences in English.
Okay, so we'll be looking at the differences here in the slides. Just give me a second. You guys have any questions so far?
Oh, we appreciate if you posted the link in the chat box.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'll do that. Just give me a second because I need to copy it from the presentation. I'll do that later. That's fine. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So, do you guys have any questions so far? Okay. Thank you, Tariq. Thank you so much. Okay. So, okay. Now, moving on, there is a second part, but we will postpone it to next week because I think it's a lot for you to absorb. Again, quickly, that was could you please all of us keep us like our mics mute? So again, it's in order to create or to make a compound sentence, you need to have 2 simple sentences at least, and they are joined with one of the fanboys, a semicolon, or a semicolon and conjunctive adverb. So we will be looking at more types of conjunctive adverbs today, okay? And what is a conjunctive adverb? It's a word or a phrase that indicates the relationship between clauses it joins, but it's usually weightier and more emphatic than a conjunction. So it's not only a conjunction, it adds a meaning. So a conjunctive adverb specify one of the following relations. It can be addition. So you could use besides, furthermore, moreover, or in addition. Like this example here, the general had complete confidence in his soldiers' training, semicolon, and then we have a conjunctive adverb. Furthermore, he considered his battle plan a work of genius. There are other types of conjunctive adverbs that add meaning, like likeness. So you could use likewise, similarly, or in the same way. The young Englishman condemned the English war against France in the 1790s. Likewise, many young Americans condemned the American war against Vietnam in 1960s. It can also, the conjunctive adverbs can also add a meaning of contrast, and they are, however, nonetheless, still, conversely, otherwise, instead, in contrast, or on the other hand. Make sure that you have a semicolon before it and a comma after it. Okay, Einstein's theory of relativity was largely a product of experiments made in his last 50 years. However, they have confirmed, this should be they here. They have confirmed its basic points. Another type of conjunctive adverb is cause and effect, and they are accordingly, consequently, hence, therefore, as a result, or for this reason. Carl spent too many nights going to parties his first semester in college. For this reason, he missed more classes than he should have. Also, means and ends which is, it's very similar to result. So you could say thus, thereby, by this means, or in this manner. When our guinea pig became listless means tired and slow, okay, we took them to the doctor. Thus, we were able to stop their illness before it became too grave. In number 6 here, we could use a conjunctive adverb also to add a reinforcement, giving more examples. For example, for instant, or to put emphasis like in fact, in particular, or indeed. My son hates T-ball. It's a game. In fact, he hates it so much that he walked from the third base during his last game of the season. So here we could use in fact or indeed to emphasize or to add emphasis. Remember, there must be a semicolon before it and a comma after it. Also, we could use a conjunctive adverb to add or to stress the meaning of time. Meanwhile, then, subsequently, afterward, earlier, and later. We went to the Voodoo Museum. Afterward, we went to a cemetery and found the grave of Marie Laveau. So here, afterwards shows or stresses the time. Don't forget again, a semicolon before it and a comma after it. So 3 types to create, or 3 things to create a compound sentence. Number 1, you could use a conjunction, as a coordinating conjunction, which is one of the fanboys, and you should use a comma before it. Also, you could use a colon, or you could use a colon and a conjunctive adverb. I'll post the slides in the chat. Sorry, not in the chat, in the Telegram, inshallah, so you can take a look and keep this on you. Now, I'd like you to quickly, and we will do 2 of these because we went way over time today, 2 of these sentences as compound or complex in the chat box. All right, so we will stop here. Thank you so much. And I'll be posting these. I'll be responding to your answers in the chat, in the Telegram. If you have any question about the slides, I'll be posting the slides and the videos, inshallah, in the Telegram group. Okay? Thank you so much. And Mr. Rida, could you please post the Telegram link here?
Okay, Mr. Muhammad. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you so much, guys. I'll be here if you have any other questions. I'll stop recording here, and we can answer any question related to the groups or finding the sources. Okay? Thank you.